Where's the
What's up,
ACTMAN?
everybody? This is the Christian man here, and today I'm really disappointed, like more so than usual, because Diablo 4 started off so strong. Blizzard hooked me in. I was invested in the story, in the gameplay, but I guess I wasn't a fish worth catching. I'm just a lowly sea bass in Animal Crossing.
You need an ad block, Doug. Stop. I know.
The reason I use this analogy is
I'm aware.
I've
Thanks.
accepted that I'm no longer the target demographic of Diablo games. I've realized that Blizzard ain't making these games for people with my kind of interests.
We'll see how this goes.
Modern gamers.
I've watched a lot of ACTMAN stuff. I'm usually a pretty big fan of ACTMAN stuff, so we'll see how it goes. But he seems like he's kind of upset with Diablo. Means maybe I'm ready to fight. I don't know. Probably not, though.
Has evolved and changed, and Diablo is more profitable than it's ever been. But that doesn't necessarily mean the games are better than they've ever been. And I'll die on that cross. So,
fair enough.
You read the title right. I don't like Diablo 4, and I think it's a bad video game. That is my personal opinion. If you enjoy this game,
he's wrong!
Don't let me change your mind, okay?
Get out the pitchforks.
Wait, hold on.
It's the
Get out the pitchforks. He's wrong. How can you not love Diablo 4? Look at this ad. This is exactly what we need, right? Best game ever? Probably.
side of blood.
You know,
Diablo 4, there are
I actually think I like this game. I'm not
See,
here to police
he came
your
around.
entertainment. You like what you like, that's fine by me, man. What I'm here to do
That's all
is
they
whine,
needed.
bitch, moan, and complain into the ether like an old man. Like an ancient Haradrim who can't understand why everyone's forgotten the old ways. I really wanted to like Diablo 4, but the longer I played it, the more I came to despise it. But before we jump
We're
into
out of
hell,
stock.
this video is
No more
sponsored
pitchforks.
by Rocket Money, an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. This finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place.
We'll talk about it.
What I love about Rocket Money is it keeps track of all my recurring monthly payments, so I don't have to go to 1,000 different places to see what I'm spending all the time. It makes it very quick and easy to manage and or cancel them. I guarantee you everybody watching this is paying some kind of monthly subscription that they shouldn't be or don't need to. Rocket Money can help lower your bills.
Don't
you can
judge
monitor your
my
spending by setting up
monthly
custom budgets.
subscriptions.
No more gambling my life savings on CSGO skins, am I right, fellas? I also like to use Rocket Money to avoid paying taxes. Just kidding, I love the government. To save more and spend less, join the 3.5 million members using Rocket Money today. And your boy has got the hookup. So go to rocketmoney.com/actman or click the link in the description to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/actman to get started for free.
I feel like he's slashing the wrong way. I don't know.
So let's start with the positives. The combat in Diablo 4 is very fluid and fun overall. It feels good to slaughter hordes of demons with lightning bolts. Now, I didn't play much of 3, but between
there's a lot of ways.
4, this one might have
a lot of different ways to do combat in Diablo 4. Tons of ways to play, which is really nice and fulfilling.
The best enemy design in the series, or at least the most interesting. In the early game, leveling up is extremely satisfying. When I saw this big skill tree for the first time, I just thought, I can't wait to max this out. And one thing I really do appreciate is that
very
boss fights are
satisfying
more about
skill
dodging
tree.
attacks instead of like
Easy
the classic
layout,
brute
simple to
force.
understand.
Is my number bigger than that boss's number? You know?
Which is how I
Because it
play
has a
every
much
video
greater
game
emphasis
ever.
on skill and strategy. A lot of boss fights in D1 and D2 were battles of attrition that could get pretty tedious. Now, I played as a druid, and all the abilities were cool, flashy, and felt awesome to use. The game certainly fulfills the power fantasy many are looking for in a Diablo title, and I appreciate that Blizzard tried to return Diablo to its gothic horror roots instead of the fucking Disney cartoon art style they came up with for Diablo 3. So I think with the core gameplay, they've succeeded. Now, before we get into the real shit, let's discuss.
The base of the game is really fun. I think all of those things are really good points that make the game fun and exciting. And we're talking about Diablo 4. It is a game that is going to continue to expand. So if the base has a good cornerstone, like the basics he talked about, then it can expand and grow over time and be an even better game than it was at launch. But I'm willing to bet we do a flip here in this video and we start talking about like the burnout and stuff that a lot of people are having with the game. And that'll kind of like ramp back up in season 1, I think. And then in season 2, we'll see though.
some minor complaints. For one, Diablo 4 is a modern video game.
With all the new features that people really love and appreciate in modern games.
Which means it has to be always online just to shove half-assed MMO
Absolutely.
mechanics in a game that basically has no social features and virtually no reason for players to interact with each other.
It's so easy to create a community.
What?
It makes Diablo more of a social experience.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I mean, I will say that I've had like some pretty interesting moments in Hell Tides and in like the Fields of Hatred for the PvP area where like I've helped people out or people have helped me out or we just come across random people and we start like working together without actually like talking and interacting necessarily, but like we're still like kind of moving through an area together. It's a cool aspect of the game. I understand it's not like full on MMO, but you have those interactions that happen in the game that can be fulfilling. And also like a lot of the times I've been playing with a party because I enjoy the game a lot with friends online. Offline, I've been doing a lot of solo work and I still have those like random encounters with people outside of dungeons that are fun and exciting sometimes.
Always online also means if the servers get fucked, then so do you.
Accurate.
It's like Blizzard literally learned
that is a
nothing from
downside.
Diablo 3. You know, when I see
An
someone lose their
offline
hardcore
mode
character
would be
putting
nice
hundreds of
just
hours
so
into
that
it,
I could
and
grind
they lose
dungeons.
because of a server issue.
It would be nice to offline and grind dungeons if the servers are down. That should be an option, I guess, but I understand why they don't have it necessarily, so.
And not a skill issue. Yeah, fuck that noise.
That does suck. I've seen a couple hardcore deaths that are just heartbreaking.
Into this game until I unlocked the horse. I mean, it's so janky. It takes like 10 seconds to warm up its engine before it starts running. Like what
the horse is kind of. He's got. Look, the horse has some issues, and obviously it's not working here because the horse isn't allowed to run in town, and we all know that all of these towns with horses have speed limits. That's what's going on in this clip. So this is just a bad clip. You can't run in town. That's the rules. We have speed limits here, people. Deal with it.
Come on, giddy up. Giddy up, you
Nope,
bastard.
you're in town.
Okay, there he goes. Okay, now on to the real shit.
It's Mischief's favorite not game. Barbarians Forever playtest demo.
Diablo 4, for me, contains two crippling, fun-ruining flaws.
The flaws.
So important that if changed, I would continue playing the game without question. Number one,
but would casuals?
Number two, the skills. Let's start with difficulty. So I stopped playing at level 48 after beating the campaign. Now, you can run down to the comments section and tell me what a casual scrub I am, that I need to play on World Tier 3, and how Diablo 4 starts to get fun and challenging after I beat the game and reach level 50. And if you're thinking that, you've just proven my point. Why do I have to dump 30 hours into Diablo 4 simply to unlock a difficulty option that suits my skill and experience? Well, because that's how it's always been, ACTMAN. Yeah, you're right. The big difference is in Diablo 1 and 2, the games weren't this easy. And D2 had some extreme difficulty spikes.
Okay.
This game is so ridiculously easy that by the time I got to that climactic finale in Hell, I was bored out of my mind, begging for it to end. After an experience like that, why the hell would I keep playing? I did end up doing the first capstone dungeon, and for whatever reason, it
was a good fight.
A light switch. It's like, oh my god,
capstone was a good fight.
Boss mechanics and not just cheap gimmicks like hard crowd control that lock me in place for 5 seconds.
Hard lock is
bullshit.
bullshit.
When I say every single death I had, besides this boss, was from hard crowd control.
Yep.
The game had to stop me from moving in order to kill me.
Accurate.
This capstone dungeon was like the highlight of my playthrough, likely because I was under-leveled for it. So why is this game so easy? In Diablo 4, literally everything scales with your level. the cost of items and upgrades, strength of enemies, gear. It's funny because every quest has a level recommendation next to it, yet it's
And
always
it's
the
your
same
level.
as your level. So it's like, what's the point? This does provide some positive benefits. It makes it easy to play with friends of higher or lower levels. You don't have to worry about your buddy who's played for 600 hours, one-shotting everything and robbing you of the gameplay experience. Another nice touch is that you don't ever out-level quests, dungeons, or the main story. So you can progress these things in any order you want.
So here's the middle ground, because I see what he's saying. I see what he wants to go with it. Because of the scaling, you can't get a difficulty to push yourself. However, I've also talked a lot about how I love the scaling and how it interacts with you and the rest of your party to allow you to kind of cross-play across levels and always be able to work with your friends and everyone have that like baseline challenge. The middle ground of this would be, what if they added a plus modifier to the tier system? So I played on the highest tiers and I pushed Courtnide to get into tier 2 when he knows nothing about the game, but that challenge adds excitement even though he's still learning the game. What if you could do kind of like easy, medium, hard, where it's a plus scale? So easy is T plus 0, and then medium is T plus 1. So the world is always 1 level above you, 2 levels above you, 3 levels above you, so that the scaling stays the same, but you can push that scaling further ahead so that you can go up to, like, let's say T plus 5, so that whatever tier you're on, all the enemies get a plus 5 because you're on nightmare difficulty. There were many tiers. I was not happy about it, but Court, you're in a better place and you're getting better gear and better XP because of it. You're welcome.
However, the drawbacks to the scaling difficulty are so flagrant and obvious, I can't believe more people aren't talking about them. You understand what it actually means for the entire game to scale with the player's level in an RPG? It means that the challenge stays virtually the same from start to finish. Why is this a problem? Well, it's going to take a good long while to explain, but if the only available difficulty option is easy as balls, then you'll be begging for the sweet release of death. Now, we're going to be comparing Diablo 4 to Diablo 1 and 2 and to World of Warcraft a lot.
Fair enough.
While WoW and D4
Makes a lot
are
of sense.
different kinds of games, the core mechanics that make an RPG fun and satisfying to grind, I feel, are the same. So let's imagine if World of Warcraft was more like Diablo 4. Picture this, you just spent a bunch of time grinding levels, doing dungeons, raids, getting the best gear, becoming stronger. You go back to the starting area and guess what? That boar you fought at level 2 takes just as many hits to kill as when you're level 70. Would you feel like a badass in this situation?
Yes.
No.
As long as the boar dies.
You just got duped into wasting your time playing an RPG that fooled you into thinking you were growing and getting stronger. Now, sure, you'd certainly have more abilities at level 70 than 2, but the point is when you level up in Diablo 4, you don't get stronger, the enemies do, and you receive a skill point to deal with it. So because the challenge is consistently easy from start to finish, I was basically playing this game on autopilot, and if I wanted a game I could turn my brain off and play, I'd grind RuneScape. But Diablo is an action RPG. I want action. I want something that's fun, exciting, and fraught with danger. And if it's got some spooky, scary moments, that's a huge plus too. This level scaling mechanic is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in an RPG. It goes beyond simply making the moment-to-moment combat stale and repetitive. And you might be thinking, well, ACTMAN, what about Oblivion and Skyrim? Well, that's a lot different because you have some control over the difficulty, and the scaling only affects the types of enemies you encounter. So it's a lot different. To be fair, I think Diablo 4 excels in its enemy design. There's a ton of cool creepy demons like those spider hosts and the walk.
I'm trying to process that because, like, I understand the point where you don't feel like you're going through to get higher level content. Like, you're not fighting to get into the next zone. But I think that's one of the great parts of the game too, in the fact that it doesn't matter if I am 10 levels ahead of my buddy, I can still play the exact same storyline he's on without being scaled down so that I'm walking through everything in God mode, essentially, right? So, like, we both can get the baseline challenge. And I don't know if you attack the scaling principles, and, like, once you do get into Nightmare Dungeons, it works better because you can pick dungeons that force the enemies 10, 11, 12 levels above your own. But you know what? I like my middle ground compromise still, where for the open world, you can do tier plus whatever levels. So if you wanted the hardest challenge, you could do nightmare mode so that you being in the open world is tier 2 plus 5 levels, or tier 3 plus 5 levels to where you're at. So your scaling is now locked to a higher difficulty, and of course you would get the bonus of the XP, and I would imagine hopefully like better percentage gear drops or whatever. So that's probably the way to deal with it if you want to add that difficulty to the game, but keeping the scaling the way it works with you and all your party members is still a really nice thing to have, because it allows you to do any content at any level with any of your friends. It gives you a way to interact with people that are not in your immediate level range, because I have friends that are not at the level of my main character, but they're high enough that if I were to start an alt character, I'd be too low to work with them. So like, I have friends that if I want to play with them, the scaling system they already have is the only way that it works.
Walking ball sacks that spawn flies, the Balrogs return, as do the Fallen. Everything fits a theme based on the area it's in, and I like that. Enemies can spawn in unique ways. They unfreeze in the snowy areas or ambush you when you loot certain chests. Enemy movesets are flashy and fun to play around. Scaling,
there's a lot of really fun mechanics.
Level design much more than you'd expect, because every corner of the game is now stuck at the same difficulty level. Therefore, no zone stands out or feels more challenging than the last. There is no sense of progression. Again, what if you took this scaling difficulty and added it to Elden Ring? What if you went to Caelid at the start and you didn't get your ass whooped by those giant dogs? Well, then that place wouldn't be as memorable. The desolate atmosphere and red-tinted sky would betray the tone of Caelid. The land of Caelid would not have this stigma amongst Souls fans of being a challenging, oppressive area of the game. And that's what makes it stand out. You get what I'm saying? When you give players far too much freedom to explore an open world and you don't gatekeep any sections of it, then they...
So, I have to point out that that's not entirely true, and it's partially disingenuous, because if you start a character and you're not doing the campaign, so you finish the campaign once and you skip campaign, or even on my hardcore character, there is a little bit of gatekeeping. You cannot enter the higher level areas because, let me see if I can like go back just a second to bring up the map. Where would... I don't see where he had it in the video. But anyway, there are clear sections in the game. So like if you're level 10 and you try to go to where the area of the Tree of Whispers is, that is still like a level 40 something area. So there is a little bit of gatekeeping, and you cannot progress. Well, you can progress past a certain area, but you're going to have significant challenges in doing so early on. So there is still a little bit of gatekeeping within the game to kind of funnel you through the areas so that you don't just jump to the last area in the game. That's still a thing. It's not as obvious, especially if you go through the campaign, because the campaign is going to take you at a pace that progresses through that at a rate that you'll never notice that scaling or gatekeeping happens. I just have to point out that.
End up having nothing to look forward to and nothing to go back to. It feels like there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing in the world of Sanctuary, and it doesn't matter what order I do it in, so it all just feels the same to me. Is this making any sense, or am I just talking out of my Diab butthole? Diablo.
A little bit of
Breath
both.
of the Wild, after leaving the tutorial, you
It
could go
makes
straight to
sense,
Ganon's
but
castle.
like
I
there
mean, you
has
stand no chance.
there's
But
things
that
I
type of
like
freedom
about
is
it.
genius, because you're given a sense of progression in the world and the different zones. You're not supposed to be here yet, but the designers still let you. I feel like this is just like basic open world RPG design 101. They
And
dangle
that-
a super hard boss or tough enemy in front of you and say, come back when you're stronger, bitch. There's plenty of
And like I said, that happens in Diablo. It's just not super obvious. Because I skipped the campaign on my hardcore character, I've been running around picking up altars and map exploration, and there have been times where I jump into an area and I start fighting something. I was like, this is really hard, and I look, and that enemy is 6 or 7 levels above me because I jumped into a zone that was above my cap, and I have to run away because I care too much about my hardcore character to risk it fighting something that I'm not scaled with yet, or I'm not there yet, and I retreat back out. But if you want to be a hardcore player that wants that extra challenge, you can jump straight to the end zone, and guess what? You're probably going to have a bad time. So that mechanic exists in the game. It's just not obvious because most people don't run through all of the zones at a pace that they would notice it.
examples: the anti-guy in Paper Mario, the skeletons next to Firelink Shrine, or the sword dancer in Tales of Symphonia. That's why going back to Slaughter the Tree Sentinel was so satisfying, because at that point you feel like you've grown stronger and gotten better at the game since he whooped your ass. And it's that feeling of growth and accomplishment that I tend to chase in RPGs. Unfortunately, in my 30 hours of playing Diablo 4, I never once had that feeling. These types of difficulty spikes, they just give me something to look forward to. I need a challenge I can't beat yet, or a super difficult optional boss thrown in my face, a forbidden area I can't
The
access
butcher will
yet.
pop up,
That's
and
what inspires
depending on
me
what
to
like
grind
nightmare
and get
you're on,
better gear, to see
not
more
fun.
of the game, right? If you brought Diablo 4's version of scaled difficulty to other RPGs, you'd see how fucking atrocious it is. Like I said, I did the first capstone dungeon at level 48, so I was 2 levels below the recommended, and after 30 hours, like, this was the challenge I'm looking for. The boss is well designed. Dying to him made me pissed.
And like, I guess to his earlier point and to a point now, so two levels above the capstone dungeon, now he feels the challenge. When I've done like level 107, my main character is like 93 nightmare dungeons, and the butcher pops up, and it is a all-out intense grind that has slightly less than 50-50 odds of me succeeding. That challenge is available post level 50, and I really do think that the developers really treated your pre-50 life in Diablo 4 as a tutorial and introduction to game mechanics for, you know, not just fans of the franchise, but casuals and everything else. Like, everything you do up to level 50, a lot of this stuff makes sense. But once you hit level 50 and you're allowed to do nightmares and everything like that, you can scale the challenge the way he's talking about. And I understand his point. Like, I should be able to do that right out the gate. But at the same time, that exists in the game. It's just later on in the game. So you don't really get the option pre-level 50, and I understand that argument very well.
I felt some tension every time I got close to killing him and was running low on healing potions. My point is, why did I have to beat the game to start being challenged by it? Remember how simple Diablo 1
I get
was?
that.
There were 16 levels, and each one got progressively more difficult and was filled with different and tougher enemies. The soundtrack and visuals would change as you got closer to Diablo's lair and hell itself. This is a very simple way to convey to the player that the challenge was evolving. This doesn't happen in Diablo 4. It doesn't matter when you go to hell. The challenge will be the same. It's like, this is a game about fighting the forces of fucking hell. Slaying
Fair
demons.
points.
I'm not the Doomslayer. I can't be the scariest thing in the game. I want it to be challenging. I want to run into some big fuck off demon that whoops my ass. Blizzard likes to remind everyone.
Okay, hold on. We're going to have to take a quick break. Ads are going to run. This is madness. This is the longest I've done just chatting for a long time. But I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. We'll finish this, and then I'll get into Star Wars. I swear, I'm actually going to play a game today. We'll get into it. I promise. Be right back. Burp. Because he lives in this little hut. They're never happy. That's the point, Hilo. Can they not get out? Oh my god, did you guys trap yourself in this fucking... The reach under isn't as fast for me as the reach over. Well, a lot of people do the flip. So you swipe under with the magazine, you hit the latch, kick out the old mag, new mag goes in, flip over the top. That's one way. The reach under is a trained thing. I would call the reach under a reach around. Some people really like the reach around and how the reach around works. But I was wondering about that too. I mean, it's a valid question. I think the reach under you could categorize as the reach around. That would be a good comparative. Where am I? Wait, there's usually a gecko around here somewhere. Hello, gecko, my old friend. I've come to slaughter you again. With the flint sword so gently, I sharpened it just for thee. And you'll stick your tongue out with some violence. It never ends till the sound of leather. That was good. I think that time, that was a good one. That was a jam. You can disagree if you want, chat, but apple? Apples? Am I supposed to collect the apples? Am I a bunny? Am I a bunny? What? What is going on? In Soviet Russia? You store werewolves in a warehouse. Why are the wolves wary? The wary werewolves worked at the warehouse while wanting to know why they were weary. Yeah. Like that, Barbaric? Is that what we're going for? Oh my god! Ah! Ah! Fuck! Come on! I got it! Eat a dick, Dugbot! Turning into court? Well, not exactly. I feel like this is fairly different from what court does. This is more... I've been pushed and accepted the role of doing like response content, so it's very different. It obviously takes a lot of time. All right, let me get situated here. Let's get back into it, yeah? Stop playing around with dart guns. It's not safe.
Recently, and for no reason at all, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices...
Diablo 4 was going back to its roots. They say darkness has returned.
Well, the initial direction was Diablo 2. The art direction for Diablo 4 is really rooted in this idea of delivering.
I really like the art style of Diablo 4. It's
and
good.
That was kind of the initial art direction of the game in general, was darker and grittier, and Diablo 2 was kind of the inspiration.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style.
Major redesign to make them feel more grim, a little scarier, a little darker.
And when writing this next chapter, we really wanted to return to our darker roots.
Everything's a little darker, everything's more difficult.
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
What? Without me, you would have no victory. And its cost will be more than you can pay.
It's the darkest story we've ever told.
You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward.
What have I done to deserve?
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
The dark tone is at direct odds with the gameplay because you're slaughtering endless hordes of trash mobs like it's nothing. You could compare this idea to Bloodborne or Bioshock or Dead Space, where the gameplay matches the tone of the locations and narrative. You see, the brilliance of Diablo 1's design is there are very few moments where you can let your guard down, even at the start, because even the trash mobs can surround you and kill your ass. This made exploration in Diablo 1 very tense and methodical. It was an action RPG, but it also felt like a survival game. But this whole aspect of surviving the forces of hell started to become more and more irrelevant when they released the second game. The issue with Diablo 1's design is that it doesn't fulfill the power fantasy modern gamers are looking for in a Diablo game. Like I said, the tastes have changed, and I accept that. Diablo fans nowadays want to kill hordes of demons that fill up the entire screen, and they want to feel like a badass.
I mean, it is a modern thing where like you want to capture as a game company more casuals into your world, right? So having more casuals means making the game more appealing to a broader audience.
The problem I have with this is it makes most fights with basic enemies feel totally trivial and pointless because they serve no actual threat. Now, this doesn't bother me in normal RPGs where you outlevel enemies, but because of the scaling, that's not a thing. At some point, I realized that fighting random enemies on the way to a quest was a waste of time because the quest itself will give me demons to fight, so I might as well skip all combat in the open world entirely. You see, it's not enough to make a somewhat linear ARPG that progresses in challenge through 5 different acts. They need to make a Diablo game into some sort of endlessly replayable grind fest in order to maximize player retention and justify
a lot of the grind is kind of meh.
Diablo 2 was more open, but it was segmented.
I get that.
You couldn't just run to the Act 5 area at the start of the game. If they had to have the open world, I would have suggested make the campaign somewhat linear, and then once players beat the game, the world opens up. But there would be a lot more to it than that. The point is, when you throw hundreds and thousands of trash mobs at me, it trivializes the combat and therefore trivializes the threat hell itself poses to the world of Sanctuary. When I did finally get to hell, there was a brief moment of excitement. I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I'm gonna start seeing some crazy ass enemies. And then it was the same demons I was fighting at the start of the game.
To be fair, if hell is spilling over into Sanctuary, why would there be different monsters in hell? Because they all came to Sanctuary. Editor's note, I guess.
Even the unique bosses aren't all.
But that being said, I have said, like, the whole point of the game is to get to hell. Why do we spend so much time, little time in hell? There should be more dungeons or activities that I can do in hell mid and late game after I finish the story. I want to spend more time in hell. It was a cool level design.
All that challenging. Take the Astaroth battle. It's built up quite a bit. I mean, you're fighting a Hell Knight riding a giant 5-headed demon dog. Talk about fucking epic. This should be a major checkpoint in the player's skills, and this guy should be a total badass. Instead, he's a cakewalk because of scaling difficulty. I made a video a long time ago about the most important thing every video game needs, and it's challenge. If I'm not challenged, you know, then I don't see a point. I don't see a point to playing the game, and that's how I feel about Diablo 4.
Fair. But there's a lot of gamers that aren't the like Dark Souls style
difficulty up to that point
player. There's a lot of like more casual gamers that don't want that like I can never achieve it parts and games. So you have to have this broader scale for capturing a broader audience in modern games.
Second crippling flaw, the skills. Now, at first I was having a blast with this game, and every time I leveled up, I was super pumped to spend the next 5 minutes looking at the skill tree and carefully considering what I would put my point in. I felt like my playstyle was constantly expanding until I unlocked my ultimate. Once you do that, the game becomes extremely repetitive as your playstyle is set in stone from then on, and you're only investing points in passive bonuses and stat increases. Sure, you can respec and swap out skills, but you're only allowed 5 abilities and a basic attack. Once you max these abilities out, you can only move
I do wish I could use more than
vertically.
5
You can't expand your
skills.
playstyle or your arsenal of tools. You can only swap things out. Does that make sense? Yes, this limitation does create trade-offs and forces players to think carefully about what to invest in and what type of playstyle they want. But I remember Diablo 2 doing this exact same thing and letting you have 8 abilities and a basic attack.
Be
and
nice.
shit, 2 weapons you could swap between. Shit, man, even the original Diablo let you have, what, like 30 different abilities and magic spells? I guess this 5-skill
Could be
limitation in
nice.
Diablo 4 wouldn't bother me so much if it weren't so tedious to change builds, right? If you get to a super high level in Diablo 4 and decide to change your playstyle, you better have enough gold to change it back in case you hate
Stuff
it.
gets
There is
expansive.
no loadout system, which I think would work if you could purchase like
Loadouts would
loadout
be
slots
great.
and you could swap those out at the stash. I'd probably keep playing the game if that was a thing. But right now, it just feels like Diablo 4 is insistent on restricting the most fun aspects of its gameplay. Is it for balance? Balance for what? PvP? Who the fuck cares? WoW lets you use like 500 different abilities. Balance for PvE? That's a laugh. We just established the game is too easy up until you hit level 50. Maybe it's to force players to make trade-offs, and that seems more likely, but come on, man. It's boring.
A main cornerstone of D4 is play your way.
Between all of our different systems, you can really create a custom character in ways that was not available in previous Diablo titles.
Play your way would be way more relevant if there was like a loadout system, a offset and a main set that you could swap between so that you could have 2 play styles for your character and kind of build 2 armor sets that support each individual set. That way, like, as a barbarian, I could have a spin to win, but I could also have a bleed zerker if I have a really intense, like, one boss fight, like if I'm going after Uber Lilith and I don't have to respec everything every time I want to switch between the 2.
You're a liar! You're a liar! In the eternal conflict between the high heavens and the burning hells, Diablo 4 offers you more choice than ever before.
This too is false.
Because we have all of these different ways to make your own character, there's a lot more possibility compared to previous titles of how you want to play, how you want to build your character.
Liar! You see, I had this fantasy of being a lightning-throwing, shape-shifting druid. I wanted to have a hybrid between those.
Be a pretty cool build.
But I had to settle for just the lightning. Why can't we have more hotkeys? Is it a technical limitation, like because they're making a game for consoles too? Well, that doesn't make sense,
the console
Dragon Age
war.
Origins, Fable, and other RPGs have had workarounds.
There's
for
way
that
to do
issue.
it,
But
yeah.
let's look at another top-down RPG that's also on console. Divinity Original Sin 2, one of the greatest video games ever made. You can invest points in the memory stat to unlock more skill slots. There's no limit, and you can do this with 4 different characters. It's literally like that easy, or at least it would be if when you leveled up, you can invest points in attributes, but you can't do that in Diablo until level 50. What the fuck? What were they thinking? Look, these are 2 radically different kinds
I mean,
of games,
maybe,
but the point
Doug.
is, as someone who's played a fuck ton
Maybe it makes
of
the game too
RPG,
easy,
I have
but
a lot more fun with this than this. The limitations on skill.
But like, if you want to get away from the kind of like meta builds are the only builds that people go after, and you want people to explore the different skill sets, you have to make it so that those skill sets have a place in strong builds. So right now, with the 5 limited skills, everyone works off of a meta sheet and like works on the like primary builds because those are the builds that are proven to work. And if you want to explore outside of that, it would make it a lot easier if you either had an offset where you could do swap out slots for your different builds, or if you had more than 5 skill slots so that you could pick other skills that aren't necessarily the best in slot skill, right?
Skills and the backwards ass design of scaling difficulty have basically killed any long-term enjoyment I could have had with this game. You blew it! Diablo 4 is plagued by so many what the fuck were they thinking type of issues. It's almost comical.
What the fuck?
You know how when PC players play a first-person shooter and they lose their mind if they can't control the field of view? That's exactly how I felt playing Diablo 4. Like, bro, why is the camera so zoomed in? They got
let me zoom out a little bit.
3 that lets you zoom out further than what
everyone
the
has
base
said
game
it.
lets you.
I get hit
Zooming
by
out is one of
things
the
off
biggest
screen
features they
so
flaunted when
much.
they were promoting StarCraft Remastered. I just don't get it. Look, I'll show you, okay? Here's the FOV in the original. Character ain't too big, looks great. Here's Diablo 2.
Okay.
Same thing. Even
Pretty
Diablo
solid.
3 somehow got
All right.
this right. And then, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm a
Throughout
bit
my
too
playthrough,
close.
I kept spamming the scroll button in vain, hoping it would zoom out, but it never does. Wait, hold the fucking phone. You can zoom out? I've been playing for 20 hours and now when I'm in hell near the end of the goddamn game, it can finally zoom out? Why couldn't I play the rest of the game like this? Why does it only zoom out at parts where the developers want to show off the level design? The level design's beautiful, by the way. Why do I even have to complain about this?
It's a pretty game.
Issue. Just let me zoom out. I figure we might as well discuss the side content Diablo offers. Well, most of it is pretty fun initially, like the dungeons, some side quests have interesting bits of story, and the strongholds are fun, lengthy battles. But these activities get old real quick. It's pretty obvious they had a quantity over quality mentality to ensure there was a lot of content for players to grind and complete. So there's 5 main areas in the game, and by completing the side content, you earn renown, which lets you unlock important things like extra skill
Very
points,
tedious,
more potion
big part of the
capacity.
game.
It's pretty much necessary to max these things out after you beat the campaign. Problem is, once again, as a result of the live service, Blizzard intends to reset the renown you've earned with every season. Why is this a problem? Because most Diablo fans fucking hated grinding for it.
I don't know why they are holding on to the idea that refarming renown will be
The
fun.
man.
I don't want to do the same side quests again. They're fucking annoying and they're a
Little
waste
bit.
of time. I don't want to
Kind
have
of.
to re-clear the same pointless dungeons for no reason.
You've probably seen people say stuff
Let
like,
me
if
keep
I
my
don't wanna have to
aspects,
grind
let me
renown
keep
again,
my
if I have to
dungeons,
grind
let me
renown
keep my
again,
side
I'm
quests.
not playing anymore. And I'm sitting over here thinking to myself, so if
I
the side
don't know.
content is that bad? If it's so boring
I guess
that
this
you
is
never want to.
I guess it's stuff that I'm going to do regardless in the game. Like, this will happen naturally, not the side quests, but the dungeons. Redoing the dungeons and the aspects, I'm going to redo regardless because the season is probably going to send me into dungeons for, like, the Malignant Hearts are going to take place in dungeons, so I'm going to do dungeons and clear dungeons. Right, but the side quest and the fact that I have to do X number of side quests in each area to actually fill out that renown bar, like, there's some cool side quests in the game and they're fun to do once. Like, it was really cool that I found the side quest that led me to the dungeon that was the very first cutscene of the game. That was like a really cool moment. Like, oh my God, I'm where the game started in the first place it showed me. This is a great location. I don't want to do that every 3 months though. Is it any worse than the dungeons? I guess not, but like, at least the dungeons have like higher mob density than side quests. They're not a lot of fetch quest or go kill quest. Like, at least the dungeons have good mob density and they're a big part of leveling up and getting through the systems. I don't know. There's a lot of things with the renown system that I don't like that you have to regrind, and I don't think anyone necessarily does. The fact that they gave us Altars of Lilith and like map progression, that's huge, but they should have gave us waypoints as well.
To experience anything like it ever again, and that's not content, dude. Those are chores. You're at the grocery store right now, checking off a list. You know, maybe these activities are worth re-examining and redesigning to make grinding renown a fun experience so that players are open to doing that again. In the promotional videos, Blizzard kept reiterating how much content there is. and that players will never run out of things to do.
It's been created to feel full of things to encounter, full of secrets to discover, full of characters to interact with, full of stories to find.
You have so many activities that you might run into.
Diablo 4 offers so much more for players to do than ever before.
We've really crafted the world to feel like there's always something just around the corner to find.
Every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
There's over 120 dungeons to play through and find.
We've got almost 150 dungeons in the game.
There's going to never be an absence of something to do.
It's really just going to be a way
I mean, there is a lot in the game.
More Diablo 4.
It's usually a red flag when I hear
a lot of it kind
talk
of
like this, because what they're
becomes
actually
repetitive
trying to say,
to a
if you
certain
translate
degree,
it, is
but
our game is going to have endless amounts of boring, tedious, and shallow activities. They focus on the scale of content instead of its quality. They prioritize the grind
fair
instead
criticism.
of the fun, the exciting.
It is
and
a
the
fair
new.
criticism.
I don't know, man. I guess I just don't get it. I don't understand the appeal of having my progress and my character reset every few months, and then having the devs try to pass it off as a feature and not a corrupt save file. You know, getting to level 40 and saving up enough money to buy a mount in WoW Classic was a big deal. I felt so accomplished after I did that, and that I could explore the world much more efficiently. But more importantly, Blizzard didn't take my mount away after 3 months and say, go do all that shit again, asshole.
You get to keep your mountain seasons.
What's next
though.
on the agenda? Stats and loot, the bread and butter of most RPGs, and the main reason people play them for hundreds of hours. On some occasions, you do get a nice reward for completing a quest or defeating a boss, like this amulet that summons a barrier, or the Mother's Embrace ring you get from Lilith. But these are extremely rare in the campaign.
Yeah,
now, it might just be me, but I find the majority of loot drops in Diablo 4 to be terribly
It's almost like it's a whole
unexciting,
video
to the
on
point
itself.
where I hardly read what most items actually do, and at a certain point, I just walk past chests because they rarely hold anything of interest. I think the loot is extremely boring for a few reasons. Number one, it all looks extremely generic. Maybe it's because I'm playing as a druid and just the druid items are boring, but when I look at the loot in Diablo 1 and 2, it just looks way fucking
A lot of it
cooler.
is kind
You
of
got,
like
the Skull Shield
reskin.
or Arcane's Valor. I mean, look at the helmets and how colorful and different they are.
Like, I think this is going to be an issue of the store, right? With the way you can transmog and the fact that you can buy skins, that's kind of why the loot kind of all looks the same in the base game, is because they want you to buy the pretty stuff, right?
But in Diablo 4, when I find a pair of boots, I feel like it's the same fucking pair
I don't
of
think it's a
boots I've already
mystery.
seen 100 times. Am I the only one who feels this way? Am I missing something?
He's not
Am I
wrong,
tripping?
no.
You know, maybe it also
A lot
has
of
to
it
do
is, like,
with the
kind of
fact
rinse
that
and
every
repeat.
item takes up the same amount of space, and the icons all look so similar that in my brain it all morphs together. There are very few moments where finding a piece of loot is genuinely exciting in Diablo 4, and part of that is because I'm also not a huge fan of RPGs that dump a bunch of meaningless numbers and
There's
stats
so
into the
many
menu and
numbers.
equipment. Remember how awesome it was in WoW when you got that?
You need like an advanced degree to understand all the damage buckets and what properties apply to what things. It's like exhausting at times, but I guess I get it. I don't know.
That first item that boosted your stats
It
instead of just
would be
armor.
like way
dude.
nicer if it was just like simpler base stats that were like quick and easy to digest that people would pick up on very easily. It would make it feel a lot better, and you'd have to do a lot less research just to play the game.
4 strength, 4 stam, leather belt. Level 18.
I think part of the reason this clip became a meme is his excitement mirrored our excitement. And that was for a belt that he found at level 18.
Yeah.
I have never been even close to this excited for any item in Diablo 4. When appraising the value
just
of
so
an item in an
so
RPG,
much to
it really helps
process.
to understand the game's mechanics and what certain stats
Look at
actually
all of the
improve.
stat-
If the
like,
stats and numbers
Jesus.
are too convoluted, then players aren't going to understand or feel any tangible benefit from increasing them, right? Again, you look at items in WoW, it's like plus 17 stamina. What does plus 1 stamina do? Plus 10 HP. Okay, you can easily wrap your head around that.
Quick
But
maths.
because the sense of progression in Diablo 4 is so fucking skewed, now you find an item that's like +9 to all stats. And you're like, what the fuck? That sounds awesome. I'm only level 20. And then you'll look at what 1 point of strength does. And what does it do? Gives you 1 point of armor. Okay, well, I have 3,000 points of armor, so this is worthless to me. I can't get over this. Like, strength doesn't improve your damage or nothing? What does strength typically do in an RPG?
But see, strength does improve your damage because if it goes in the damage bucket, that goes on your base. So you have your base attack, then it adds your skill and strength, and then that multiplies by your crit. There's so many. There's the damage buckets, and where you divide it's a lot.
You want to use this big ass weapon? Strength
So
requirement.
much.
You want to do more damage? Strength. Bro, even in Warcraft 3, the strength stat did more than what it does in Diablo 4, and that wasn't even an RPG. I've never played an RPG like this where the core stats felt so fucking useless, so meaningless to increase. This is apparently what the entire Paragon board is all about. Yeah, and let's talk about
There's
that
so
shit. How do
much.
you balance a game that has skill trees this big by making each point basically worthless? Diablo 1 did it better. I cannot for the life of me understand what they were thinking. The reason I bring all this up is because so many of the stats.
And if you get your Paragon board wrong, it screws your build so hard, then you have to go redo it, which costs millions and millions of gold. But if you screw it up on the redo, you're not going to have enough money to redo it again. So you have to figure out how to fix it from there. The Paragon board's intense. And like, it's really hard to like track exactly what you're looking for in the Paragon board, and it takes a while to understand, and it costs so much to redo it. And if you want to redo it, you have to go through point by point by point and delete every single dot that you have on it. So if you're 4 boards deep, you're going to have to individually delete probably 40 to 50 Paragon points. It takes forever.
Stats on items, I look at it and I'm like, well, this doesn't mean anything to me, or it doesn't feel important. League of Legends champion design suggests that giving players fewer but more meaningful passives is far more desirable than a bunch of passives that offer minimal changes, because you're not going to notice most of this shit at all, especially when the enemies are scaling with you. There's so many different damage modifiers, you know, complex number calculations like damage to close enemies, damage to distant enemies. Well, where's the stat for damage to enemies at a moderate distance? Why don't you have that?
Yeah, where's
as well?
the in
Why is
between?
it necessary to have like 8 different stats to calculate how much damage something does? Why do resistances
There's
reduce
so much
incoming
math going on
physical
in the game.
damage, as well as magical damage? It's just like, I just think this is like the worst stat system I've ever seen in an RPG. It defies belief to me.
I've spent the past 7 years traveling the world perfecting my craft. You see, I'm something of a...
So again, going back to the original, enemies didn't respawn and levels were finite. So you were encouraged to kill everything, pick up every item, and sell the shit you weren't using. You could sometimes buy a really good item with gold, and in the later stages purchase elixirs to boost stats, and of course stock up on potions. But Diablo games, in my opinion, even the first 2, always had a way of making gold feel kind of worthless. That has never been more apparent than in Diablo 4. It's like you'd only have 2 options: buy the shittiest gear you'll never use for dirt cheap,
Yeah,
or drop
the
all of your money
stores
on one
suck.
overpowered item. I hate having just these 2
Stores
choices.
are
So when you keep
absolute
checking the
garbage
shop
in Diablo.
inventory in Diablo 4, and it's never anything good, or it's something that requires you to drop all your money so you
Even
can't
gambling
respec,
rarely
just
gives you
stop
something.
checking.
The
This blows
opals.
my mind. The entire concept of purchasing items and equipment in an RPG is superfluous. That's a big fucking problem. I never once in my entire playthrough purchased a piece of equipment from a store. You know, sure, I did things like upgrade my potions or craft elixirs or upgrade my gear, but I never bought anything. In fact, this item has more item power, but the ring I currently have equipped has higher resistances. So like, why the fuck would I ever buy this or that or that? Imagine creating an RPG
You wouldn't.
where in-game currency feels worthless. At one point, I stopped trying to pick up gold entirely if it was 2 seconds out of my way. And again, because the value of items scales and everything is progressively getting more and more expensive, I feel like I'm only able to afford 1 or 2 items at any particular store. So I'm not about to drop all my cash on something that I'm just going to end up outscaling
go
in
shopping.
an hour or two. I think you've royally fucked up the in-game currency when taking 3 seconds to double back and pick up a pile of gold feels like a waste of
But I
time.
mean, then later
So
in the
many
game,
facets of this
everything
game
becomes
feel
so
superfluous to me,
expensive,
and I'm
it's
not saying
insane.
They are superfluous. That's just how they feel to me. So in a nutshell,
Trying to get
my
like the
play
best
style eventually
rolls
developed
on slots starts
okay,
costing
I'm
millions of
skipping
dollars
chests
per
because
roll.
those are worthless. I run through all combat in the open world because it's unnecessary. If gold isn't in my path, I don't go back for it. I skip through sections of dungeons so I can complete them faster. I skip dialogue and side quests so I can grind the renown faster. I don't go into the cellars anymore, and it's just like, dude, I'm just skipping the game.
Sounds like
skipping
it.
past all this shit.
I don't skip the game.
All right,
I take my
4,
time and
you've
I
got
enjoy
one
the
last
journey,
chance to
but
redeem yourself. And that's what this story.
that's not what a
Is it
lot of
any
people are
good?
getting.
Well, I'm pleased to say
I think
that
the story
opening
is
cutscene
good.
is pretty fucking awesome. It begins with some grave robbers who are in
Great
way over their
cutscenes.
heads. They stumble across a power, the likes of which they can't even comprehend. And immediately the game establishes that sense of terror and fear that was sorely lacking in Diablo 3. Then your character arrives in a town, you clear a dungeon of demons out for them, you head back and start celebrating with the townsfolk when
drunk.
all of a sudden, oh shit, you're poisoned. This guy brings you to a shack where they perform
tries to
some
kill
kind
ya.
of satanic
Yeah.
human sacrifice ritual, and it's like
Craziness.
okay, all right, you got me invested. So while there are some decent moments here and there, after the introduction, the story takes a fucking nosedive like Amelia Earhart. The beginning and end of Diablo 4 are the game's strongest parts, narratively.
Accurate.
Likely because there are only 2 pre-rendered cutscenes that sandwich the rest of the story. Almost everything that happened in the middle is just a blur to me, which is strange because the setup for the plot is very interesting. You've got Lilith and Anarius,
There's more
an
cutscenes than
angel
just
and a
the 2
demon
end
who
caps.
created Sanctuary.
There's
This is
the one where
first
you go
time
for
we've
his
seen,
blessing.
Like, an archangel and a demon form some kind of an alliance. They seem to be the only entities on each faction with a desire to end the war between heaven and hell, or at least escape
Mommy and Daddy
it.
got a
One
divorce.
of the major
It happens.
issues with the story is the parts that don't include Lilith, Mephisto, or Anarius are terribly mundane. Characters are swapping in and out, and they get killed off.
Kill a
You
lot
know,
of
the
family
scene after
members.
They're introduced. Some of them I even forget their name, like this guy who was in the tree. Nafane, I totally forgot he existed until I went back and watched my own footage. I think Diablo 4's story is
But no
further
character.
proof to me that Blizzard's style of writing has deteriorated severely in the last decade. You know, if you compare the end of act cinematics in Diablo 2 to 4, I mean, it's a major difference.
Now we are truly alone. The creators of Sanctuary, Angel and Demon, Father and Mother, are dead. I heard later that he was defeated. And that the Soul Stones were destroyed in Hellforge. All except one.
The big difference is in Diablo 2, they actually show the events that Marius, the narrator, is talking about, as opposed to just like some boring static shots of like a horse walking through the snow. It's why I seen like this.
Lilith and Astaroth had made a deal, and we were the ones who would pay the cost.
Is nowhere near as interesting or engaging as this.
Take it. Take it, take it. I'm glad this is finally over, Tyrael. Everything happened exactly as Lilith wanted. We just danced to her music.
It's why I'm more interested in this.
Oh, I failed, Tyrael. I couldn't do as you asked.
And not so much this.
Donan was shattered. His mind on grief, not her. Not answers. Look what the stone has done to me.
There are hundreds of NPCs in several different towns, but
I feel like he really cherry picked kind of like the cinematics there and the parts of the story, because I think there's a lot of situations in which the story's developed and delivered in a better way than that.
the world design of Diablo 4 is a byproduct of the gameplay, less so the story. Now, what do I mean by that? What are those words that are coming out of your mouth, ACTMAN? Well, let me explain. The open world isn't there to service some kind of overarching or branching narrative. It's to create a big-ass map that the developers can litter with tons of activities to keep players busy and keep them grinding. You might have noticed that almost none of the optional dungeons in this game have any sort of story or history behind them. What I find the most immersive game worlds are those that tell a story while I'm playing through them. Now, if you want to understand what's so wrong with Diablo 4's world, we need to look back at the first game, because it's the polar opposite of everything Diablo 4 is trying to be. I think Blizzard knows that Tristram is the most memorable location in the series, because in every sequel they find a reason to take you back there. Thing is, Blizzard doesn't
Well, I mean,
seem to
it's the
understand
center of
why
like the
Tristram
universe
is such an
for
iconic
the
and
franchise,
memorable
right?
location. Oh yeah, the music does some pretty heavy lifting, but the main reason comes down to this phrase: less is more. Bigger isn't always better. Just ask my gargantuan penis. Diablo 1 took place in a single location, Tristram, and there were 8 characters that lived there, a couple cows, and a cathedral that led down to hell where the bad guys were. Each character offered a combination of advice, exposition, and insight for the player. Whenever you got a quest in Diablo 1, you could ask each of the 8 residents about it. This added important context and massive buildup to each quest.
I saw what Farnham calls the butcher as it swathed a path
The butcher!
my friends. He swung a cleaver as large as an axe, hewing limbs and cutting down brave men where they stood.
I know more than you think about that grisly fiend. His little friends got a hold of me and managed to get my leg before Griswold pulled me out of that hole. I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection.
By the light, I know of this vile demon. I don't know what he used to slice open his victims, but it could not have been of this world. Beware if you plan to battle this fiend.
The butcher is a sadistic creature that delights in the torture and pain of others. You have seen his handiwork in the drunkard Farnham.
Big cleaver, killing all my friends. Couldn't stop him. Had to run away.
So everyone in town is telling you this guy is a big fucking menace, but
Yeah.
from their own unique perspective. This added realism to the world of Diablo. And
I
its
mean, that
characters. It
happens in
created
Diablo
build-up
4
and tension
too.
to every quest
There
and
are
every boss
scrolls
fight.
all
There's a
over the
reason
place
Blizzard
that give
keeps bringing
individual
back the
experiences
Butcher in
and
newer Diablo
stories
games, and
about
it's
what
because
goes
this
on and
quest
what's
from the
happening
first
inside the
game
dungeons.
is just that iconic. But why?
The spirits
Just because like it, you have to find it,
Part of
it's
the
not
reason is for
as
every
in
quest
front of you,
Diablo
but
1,
like
you get to consult the same 8 characters. This makes the plot easy to follow as it's not being communicated through like 40 different characters. Diablo 4
I mean, it's a
is
big
like the
world,
exact
though.
opposite. It feels like once again the designers had to justify this open world design by having you constantly jumping from one area to the next. No one person, quest, or area is given enough screen time to become truly memorable aside from a handful of moments. Prime example of this style of writing is the Tree of Whispers. It's an ancient tree decorated with the severed heads of those who pursued its knowledge. Now that sounds fucking awesome, but this place has barely any build-up to it at all. You can't really ask characters to prod their knowledge of it. Lorath and Donan might have a couple lines.
I mean, so like the argument here is he wants games to scale back down to smaller games. But like the information's there is just given from more people and the way that the actual world works. If you like go out and like you're not only going to get information about the real world from like 2 people in your life. If you're trying to do something, you're gonna like spread out and you're gonna get information from different people, and different people have different experiences. That's where art mimics reality in Diablo 4, is you have more than 8 people to talk to or get information from. When you're going through a dungeon and you come across a scroll that talks about how the monsters, you know, killed them as they were trying to progress through it. Yeah, it's a character that you don't know or understand, but like you're following their path in that dungeon, so you're getting their experience in that dungeon. It's just not from like one core character that you know and like relate with. That's how life works, and I don't think that that's a valid argument necessarily.
Lines, but it's nothing deep.
I don't want everything from one or 2 characters. That's not how the real world works.
Than the world is trying to make it out to be. What it boils down to is, ironically, the original Diablo, which takes place in a single town consisting of 8 characters, tells a vastly more interesting, relatable, and immersive story than all of the towns and people in Diablo 4 combined. Now, maybe that's just nostalgia squirting out my ass, but let me convey this point with a question. Can you name a single blacksmith in Diablo 4?
Do I need to? I can't name a single gunsmith that I use.
Remember Grizz?
I can't name a single, like, person that sells me guns at the gun store. I can't name any of the people that work in the knife section at Cabela's. Like, these are just vendors. They're not people that, like, I'm fiercely brand loyal to. They're just people who sell and do stuff around the world. They're not, I don't know. Again, this is art imitating life. I guarantee no one remembers their cashier from Target 2 weeks ago.
Griswold?
Whoa, what can I do for you?
Of course you do. Now run with me on this for a second.
And it's different in the older games, but like this is closer to real life than it is than that was.
Shit and sells you stuff. We now have 75 soulless,
maybe that's
empty
just me.
blacksmiths scattered across the land of Sanctuary, none of whom play any role in the story or contribute at all.
And
to
I'm
the
fine
world
with that.
building.
I
This
just
doesn't
need them
apply
to fix
just
or
the
buy my stuff.
blacksmiths in the world of Diablo
They're
4.
vendors.
It applies to all
I'm
vendors
popping into
in
the
game.
Walmart.
They serve no purpose outside of gameplay, which I guess it's fine. Like, it's lazy, but it's fine. But do you see the conundrum? Since Diablo 4 is an open world game, if you take out 70
I don't like the
blacksmiths
argument
and
on
leave
that one.
only 5 or whatever, then it becomes tedious to find them. And Blizzard clearly didn't want to go through the effort of writing each blacksmith to be an actual character, and I don't blame them for that. My point is that in so many ways, Blizzard seems to sacrifice world building for an open world. Now, call me crazy, but I think vendors and merchants play an important role in a video game, especially if that game is an RPG.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want
I
to
don't
see
remember
you
a
go
lot of my
hollow.
vendors from World of Warcraft, and I thought they had great world building.
Got something that might interest you.
No, I think all NPCs should play some kind of role in an RPG or offer a slice of life. But outside the characters in the main story, most of the people who inhabit Sanctuary aren't memorable or important at all.
Because
Therefore,
that
neither is
imitates
Sanctuary
real
itself.
life.
I don't know, man. The scaling difficulty and restrictive skill trees make the core
I
gameplay
think
feel extremely easy, boring, and
this
repetitive,
last
and with
part
some
of the
slight
argument
changes
is
that they'll
just
probably never
an
do,
argument
would improve the game
against
vastly.
like
The loot is uninteresting.
having
Most of the
a
game's
little
content
bit
is
of the
shit I just ended up
mundane
skipping trying to get to
inside
the fun
the
part,
game
but I
that
never really got
imitates
to the fun
reality.
part. In the end, for all of Blizzard's efforts to make Diablo 4 a massive open world game with tons of replayability, content, and depth, it ends up being no deeper than the puddle in my backyard. And that is why Diablo 4 is so bad. Thank
I
you
don't
all
think
for
it's that
watching.
bad.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave
Look,
a like if you did.
ACTMAN,
And
he makes some
subscribe to the
points.
ACTMAN
He makes
for
some
more
points.
awesome content. Just a
Some
reminder that you
of
can
the
enjoy
things are
even if
reasonable
I say bad
critiques.
things
Some of
about it, and you
them
can disagree
are
with my
probably
opinions too. But don't let me rob your
over-exaggerated,
enjoyment or
but
police your entertainment. All right.
you know,
All right, everyone. That's all I got for
it was
today.
well researched. He put it together, and he obviously understands the franchise. So like,